Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Gaelic Games Fan TV. How are we all getting on? Joined here by Matthew Hurley from the Gaelic Statsman podcast, Gaelic Statsman social channels, to review both club championship games. Obviously, both semi-finals. Castlehaven obviously getting the win versus Dingle on penalties. We also had a big win as well for Whitegraves Glen against Scottstown. Both of them now into the final four alongside Kilmacud Crokes and St. Bridget's. Be taking maybe, little few previews of the semi-finals as well, a few little predictions. We'll be doing that a little bit later on in the show. Who do we think is going to go all the way and win the All-Ireland? And a few other GA news stories to discuss. Obviously, the fixture lists have now been announced for the National Football League, so we'll be going through them a little bit as well. And anyone who has any questions or wants us to discuss anything, any news stories that some of you lads have seen, feel free to get them in the comment section and we'll be sure to run through them. Make sure to be hitting the like button, subscribing, all that stuff. Share it out to your friends and family if you haven't already. That'd be much appreciated. Matthew, how's things? I suppose not a bad weekend for Cork clubs again.
Yeah, not really. And thanks very much for having me on again, Aaron. Yeah, a very good weekend for Cork clubs in general. 3 finals in Munster, 1-2, so can't complain really. Kilmacud won the intermediate, and obviously Castlehaven yesterday. It was an incredible game really, end to end, and with the weather and everything, it was just mad. For the game live on TG Car, like the camera, I see the highlights out today. The game, the camera was blowing this way and that, and it was just incredible in many ways. Obviously, Glen beating Scottstown was another result, and we'll discuss that as well. So quieter than usual this weekend. Like on Saturday, you were looking at the games, there was barely any other than the Teddy McCarthy Memorial Games and Páirc Uí Chaoimh at the weekend, so there wasn't much. So we're kind of getting into the Christmas season now, where the club season started to come to a conclusion, and we've less games, and look, we've more chance to talk about these provincial finals in many ways, so maybe it could be a good thing.
Absolutely, yeah. And as you said, like the club championship season really is coming to a close. I mean, before we know it, in a couple of weeks, a month, 6 weeks or so away from the return of inter-county football. So yeah, absolutely mad, and be starting a couple of season previews in the next couple of weeks as well. So for anyone who's tuning in, let us know obviously which counties you want us to discuss. But yeah, I suppose you were at the game. Like, from listening and from watching TG Cahar on the TV, like, I mean, you could hear the wind swirling, the lens was getting fogged up with rain. They had to keep switching cameras so that they could wipe the lens down. It was very hard to know what was going on at the best of times from watching it on the TV. So, considering you were there, like, I mean, how bad were the conditions and what was it like in general? Because, Jesus, yeah, I didn't envy you sitting up in the stands watching that, because it looked fairly fierce out there.
To be fair though, I was in a cover stand, and actually one of the stewards actually at near the entrance to the stand actually said, like myself and another person I was at the game was, we were going to go up the steps of that place at the Gaelic grounds, and then the steward said, no, you're going to get wet there, you'd be better off moving down. So thanks to that lad, in fairness, thanks for saving us from getting drenched. But he got a very nice mention there. But yeah, I was up at the stand. It wasn't too bad. It was weather-wise, but it was brilliant atmosphere-wise. I was lucky actually to be amongst the Castlehaven fans in the game rather than the Dingle supporters. Like, the Dingle supporters were down the far end of the stand, and then the Castlehaven fans were down where I was sitting. So it was actually great, to be around Cork people in many ways, to watch the game, and even for the penalty shootout, to video that penalty miss for Dingle and one for Castlehaven, even to see the reaction of the Castlehaven fans was brilliant to see. So I think it was in a good part of the stand, but the weather was absolutely dreadful. As you've seen probably on TG Car, and as many people seen it as well, you could actually see the corner of the pitch, the far corner according to the camera of the pitch on the left, and where I was sitting on the near side to the right, that corner of the pitch in the Gaelic grounds was almost like a swimming pool. It seriously was, because people were sliding along there. The ball was stopping there. It was literally like a big old puddle over there. So Yeah, it was hard conditions for the players. You could even see a load of people cropping up. Obviously, David Callahan, but the obvious one at the end of the penalty shootout. Brian Hurley even cropped up after his penalty. You had Paul Gainey cramping up. You had a load of Dingle players cramping up. Castlehaven players all over the pitch. So yeah, it was that kind of a game, and it was very tough conditions for the players, and they actually produced a very good spectacle of football, which was quite unusual with the standard of football we probably got this season in all competitions. So fair play to the players. They played to their hearts out. They played some excellent football on the day when it wasn't a great day for football whatsoever. Like even in the penalty shootout, the rain, it wasn't just pelting down, it was pelting down at an angle as well, which is nearly worse for the players. It was worse for the goalkeepers actually, because the rain was actually going into their faces for Damien Callahan and Gavin Curran in the Dingle goal. So you could imagine the pain that they probably went through on today as well. So yeah, it wasn't a pretty day to play football, but to watch it from the stand, it was a grand day, because actually the stand that's open in the Gaelic grounds wasn't even open on the day. You could see some of the Castlehaven and Dingley players actually fetching the ball in that stand as well. So that's the way it was in the Gaelic ground. So yeah, thanks to the Gaelic ground staff, I suppose, for keeping the fans dry.
Absolutely, yeah. And I suppose it was a fair distance, obviously, for both teams to travel, both sets of supporters to travel as well. But yeah, it was a fascinating game, wasn't it? Because Dingle obviously led for the majority. They were dominating the ball. They had the majority of the possession. 3 points up at the start of the second half. You felt like it was done. It was done and dusted. Obviously, Castlehaven were playing with the breeze, if you want to call it that. I mean, the breeze was swirling everywhere, but they were more so playing with the breeze in the second half than they were in the first. But like the amount of times Castlehaven fought back from the dead, I mean, like genuinely, there was so many moments in this game where I thought they were done. I mean, 3 points down at the start of the second half in normal time. They managed to pull that back. They're a point down in injury time. They managed to pull that back. They get a late point from Brian Hurley from the free. Then in extra time, 3 points down again at the start of the second half. They pulled that back 2 points in injury time to make the game level. And then in the penalty shootout, Dingle even have the chance to win it. Like, they were a penalty kick away from winning it, and obviously Damien Callahan makes the save, and I suppose the rest is history. Like, Castlehaven go on to win it from there. So, like, it was extraordinary, really. I don't think I've seen a team as beaten as many times as Castlehaven, where in those conditions, yet still somehow come back and win it. Like, kind of remarkable, really.
It probably epitomises the bounce back ability and the mental strength that Castlehaven do have, because you actually look at the run that they've had in the championship. Like, on the last day of the Cork Championship group stage, people might seem to forget this, but in a game against Clonakilty, if they lost or drew that game, they could have got out of the Cork Championship altogether. We wouldn't be talking about All-Irelands or Munster Championships, but in the end, Castlehaven, they dug deep, they won that game in Bandon, got over the line there. Ballincollig gave them a stern test in the second half of that game in the quarter-final. Castlehaven still held on. Against the Bars, Ethan Toomey gets a late goal. They're under the cosh there. They still get over the line. Nemo were ahead multiple times in that game, but the Havens still find a way to go on and win the game. Cracklow pushed them back so many times in Páirc Uí Chaoimh in that Munster quarter-final. They still go on and win that game. The bad start that they got against Rathcormac didn't affect them. They still went on and won that game. And yesterday epitomised what Castlehaven were all about. Their doggedness, their quality under intense situations. And what I will say, Mark Collins and Colin Maguire in particular, their 2 points. I think Maguire's the point to level it in extra time was excellent. Mark Collins' point to make it 13-12 was even better when you look at the scoring, when he judged it to perfection. And those are some kind of the sort of lads that you want around the dressing room or around the pitch to try get back into the game. Because you look at Damien Callahan, Conor Callahan, Mark Collins, Brian Hurley, Michael Hurley, even though Michael Hurley actually went off early injured, but he's still, shouting instructions, I'd imagine, from the sideline as well. James McCarthy, experienced manager there as well. I think it helps having those guys around the dressing room as well as on the pitch to, bark out the instructions, to keep level heads. And Castlehaven didn't panic either. They didn't panic. A lot of the fans in the stand where I was actually panicked whether Castlehaven were going to get back into the game or not. But in fairness to the players, they took the right opportunities. Jack Callahan epitomised that for Colin Maguire's point, actually. When you look at back at TG Carr, he gathers the ball, he goes into, I think, 3 Dingle players, but he has the awareness to pass it into space, into a Castlehaven player. That Castlehaven player then passes into Colin Maguire over the bar level. And their bounce back ability was absolutely brilliant. And, in fairness, their aggression was brilliant, even in the penalty shootout. These little things as well. Damien Cahalane annoying the Dingle player. I think it was Thomas Sullivan stepping up, just doing everything in his power to go on and save that penalty, to just annoy him, do everything whatever it takes. Like you talk about whatever it takes with these big teams. You look at Dublin over the past few years in football. You look at Limerick and hurling, doing whatever it takes to win. It's a will to win, and that's what good teams should have. Kilmacud is another example of that. And Castlehaven showed that in abundance yesterday, in fairness to them. They showed a lot of heart, a lot of desire, and that's ultimately what they got over the line in the end. And they annoyed Dingle. Like, Dingle did their utmost best to manage the game in their own way as well, and they did well to an extent, but the Haven did much better in managing the game. And there is an argument, actually. Dingle probably took more quality scores, but Castlehaven took more clutch scores. And that's probably why Castlehaven went on and won it. Like, what wins at the end of the day? Clutch scores rather than quality scores. Quality scores are nice, but clutch scores win you games. And that's what Castlehaven did yesterday. And fair play to them for doing that.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, and from watching the game, like, originally I thought it was Conor Cahalane in goal, because they kept mentioning him in commentary during the penalty shootout. I'm not too sure. Like, it was just one of them scenarios where you're listening to the commentary and you're thinking it was him. But yeah, like, he looked like a man possessed. And to be fair, like, if you're a Dingle player, like, in those conditions, in those tough weather, having come through 80 minutes of absolute hell, you haven't put the team away. Like, you've had so many chances to beat this team. And then you've got this lad between the goals, smiling, like, laughing at absolutely everything. Both of his penalties were absolute belters as well. Like, probably two of the best penalties in the shootout. And then his celebration at the end to top it off was very funny. Yeah, I'm not too sure if he might have hurt himself in the process, but yeah, like, that was. And look, we've saw it before. Mind games do work. I mean, not everyone maybe enjoys it, but anyone who's watched penalty shootouts down the years, from Champions League finals to World Cup finals, we do know these things, they don't often work, but they very often do have a hand in working. And to be fair to Damien Cahalane, like, he made some big saves in big moments as well, like, especially that save he made to stop Dingle from winning it, because at that point it did look like curtains.
It did, to be fair. And actually, Michael Hurley actually edited a photo. If you've seen it on Twitter and Instagram, it was actually very entertaining. He actually put Damien Cahalane's head onto the photo of Emiliano Martinez. Remember that at the World Cup last year?
Yeah,
it was a similar kind of a situation there. It was very well done. Yeah. Very well done by Michael Hurley, in fairness, and fair play to him for that. But I just think he was brilliant yesterday, and a lot of people are actually shocked. Is Cahalane going to go for this? And I was looking around Castlehaven fans, and we were thinking, geez, this is a big move. But actually, as pointed out by a few people on Twitter, Eddie O'Hare, I think a photographer from the Evening Echo, he actually put up a photo of Damien Cahalane was in goal for a soccer club called Greenwood in the National Cup. They played Salthill Devon, I think, a few under 16. Which would have been more than 10 years ago anyway. Damien Cahalane's nearly 13 or even over that. And there was a clip of him actually scoring a goal from goalkeeper as well. So he knows how to, produce brilliant moments in goal, in fairness to him. And there's a lovely picture of him taken by Eddie O'Hare, celebrating with Sheffield United defender John Egan. So I'm sure John Egan will be looking at that as well and thinking, geez, that's my mate in goal there, and the memories are starting to come back there. So I actually didn't know that until yesterday. I really didn't. But fair play to Damien Cahalane. But I've always said that he's a brilliant footballer. He plays with the heart in his sleeve. He's just a brilliant footballer to have in a team, and that's why I'd love him back at the Cork team. I'm not sure will he go back into the Cork football team now. Maybe he's had his fill with football and things like that with the All-Ireland Club Championship with Castlehaven, but he's a guy that would die for the cause. Like, a lot of Kerry fellas would die for the cause, in fairness, and that's why they've got over Munster championships over the last few years. But I go back to the Cork teams in the past few years, like the likes of Nola Leary, Graham Canty, Paddy Cassan, them kind of players that would die for the cause, Nicholas Murphy. And I think Damien Cahalane is one of those players. And it's a mystery to me why he doesn't play football. I think he's a much better footballer than he's a hurler. Like, I talked to many people in West Cork where I'm based, and a lot of people actually agree that he's a better footballer than a hurler. And it's kind of a question that he doesn't pick the football. Conor Cahalane's nearly the same. Actually, Conor Cahalane, I didn't recognise he had some elite football skills up until this season of the club championship. Look, it's amazing when you think about it. He's been hurling for Cork nearly all of his career, and he stepped up there for the footballers. And Castlehaven have a brilliant set of Catalans there in Damien, Connor and Jack, of course. So it's a brilliant family. But Damien has to go into the Cork team if he's available. And what I will say to Margaret, I actually seen John Cleary, the Cork manager, at the game yesterday. He was in front of me, in a row in front of me anyway. And I was thinking, maybe he's thinking in his brain that Damien could come back into the team. And worth noting too, Damien Callahan is John Cleary's nephew. So there could be a family connection there too. So that's another connection for another day. And actually, I don't know, did anybody see the photo on social media of a recreation of the 1997 photo of Damien as a child with his dad Niall and Larry Tompkins in the photo? They recreated that photo in the Limerick dressing room yesterday, which was absolutely brilliant to see. So really, the story of the day was Damien Callahan from centre back and from goal in general. So fair play to Damien Callahan, and he is the story of the club championship. And I think we've lost our host there, so I suppose we'll have to talk more about Damien Callahan rather than a Dublin player. But he's been exceptional, hasn't he? Damien Callahan, he's been a brilliant player over the last few seasons. Like, it's a mystery to me, really. As I mentioned, why I think he'd be a brilliant footballer for Cork, slot in at centre back. Maybe Rory Maguire and Sean Meehan or Daniel O'Malley would have some opinion about that. But he's a brilliant player, Damien Callahan. I'd definitely have him on the Cork team. I'd have Connor, I'd have Jack if they're available. Like, the whole Castlehaven team in general, like, you look at Cathal Maguire's performance yesterday was superb as well. And those are kind of lads that would die for the cause. As I think we have Aaron back now. I think we do.
Yeah. I'm back for now anyway. Yeah, a few internet connections there. I'm just joining on my my hotspot on the mobile device there. Few internet issues. You don't normally see this in the capital, but unfortunately my internet only goes during these live streams. Never goes. You know, I could be literally going about my day doing the dishes or something like that, and it won't go. But as soon as we go live and start talking about Gaelic football, then the thing just breaks. So yeah, bear with me. We'll hopefully get my regular internet back in a moment. But there we go. Just a few comments to run through here. Porrick was saying most people think Glen have unfinished business. Is it gonna load up for me? I don't know if it is.
Yeah, it's loaded up for me. Will I read it?
I don't know, Jeff. As Chris Kamara once said.
I'd say I'll better read it, but I'll go ahead and read it. Sure. Most people think Glen have unfinished business, but I think Kilmacud Crokes have real unfinished business after 2023 controversy. Beating Glen and retaining will sweep away 2023 controversy fully. So that's what Porrick said there. I think we lost him again. Oh, don't worry, Porrick. We'll get back to your thought there as soon as we get the host back, I suppose.
Perfect, right. I think we're back in action now anyway. AJ was saying who will win junior championship. You think Lahardane will be favourites to after being intermediate last year? What do you reckon? Have you been following much of the junior championship? I haven't really, to be honest.
Small, but to be honest, I think Listowel Emmets will win it. I'll be straight with you. Mark O'Shea's manager there. They're like, I think, 24 best team in Kerry, so that's a very high ranking in such a pristine football county. So I think Listowel Emmets are going to win it. Whatever McKay's, I think it's the name of the club. They could win it if they put their act together. But Milltown from Kildare and Arva from Capital are the two other clubs, as far as I know, in that championship. So Milltown could do it. The Kildare, I've heard some good stuff about the Kildare Club Championship this season. Alan Wood are in the intermediate as well. So, it's going to be close, but I'd say Listowel Emmets should get the job done.
There we go. Bringing it back to the Castlehaven Dingle game, I mean, where do you think it went wrong for Dingle? Because like they were so dominant for so long. I mean, it wasn't like the game was finished around like that. I mean, but they always looked in control. They always looked comfortable. They had so many opportunities to win the game. Like, where do you think it ultimately went wrong for them?
It's a hard one, really. Like, I think it was just Castlehaven's dockiness to never give up. Honestly, and maybe Deagle's inability to finish them off in many ways. Their shooting was pretty similar both sides. It was a nip and tuck game, so I don't think Dingle could have many complaints about the way it ended in a draw. I just think the penalty shootout, maybe they could have managed it, but then again, with Damien Callahan in goal, taunting Thomas Sullivan, you know, that kind of scenario, you just have to say that Castlehaven just wanted him more. They wanted him more in the penalty shootout to get the job done in the end. But yeah, Dingle, they played their part. They took some excellent scores. Like Paul Ganey scored the first score of extra time inside. I think it was 5 seconds. It was an outstanding score. Just booted with the wind, which was very innovative and very, very good from him. Dylan Ganey had a few nice touches. Conor Ganey had a good performance as well. Thomas Sullivan was bombing up and down the field. So they did have good performers, Dingle, but it looks like I just think Castlehaven just wanted it more out of the two teams. They were just never going to give up. They never were going to give up the Munster title, that they were primed to win it. And I just feel Dingle came up against the sides that were, never going to give up. And ultimately, and as well, I think Castlehaven have been through tougher, tests going down to the well and going out of championships and things like that. They've had more scrutiny in their season rather than Dingle, and maybe that could have proved a factor as well. You look at the Cork Championship, Castlehaven could have gone out in the last round against Clonakilty. Dingle, there was kind of that safety net. Even if they lost to Big Kerry, they still would have gone through to the Munster Championship. They still would have won their county club championship as well. So I don't think Dingle had that sort of unsafety about them throughout the season, whereas Castlehaven did. Maybe that's the reason why Castlehaven got over the line. It's like Ardensville's family, isn't it? Like, you look at Ardensville's family, for example, the family that goes through the most eliminators goes on and wins it because they've been under the cosh for so long. Maybe that was the thing with Castlehaven, why they got over the line and why Dingle ultimately didn't.
Yeah, Zach says here, went down to how they tried to see out managing the game. Compare their last few minutes with that of Glen. Glen kept pressing on and pushing on. Dingle dropped off their kick out and allowed Castlehaven to come forward. Yeah, it's a very, very good point there. And to be fair, I think I remember saying that in the match reaction yesterday as well. Like, maybe the conditions maybe played a little bit of a part with Dingle not being able to push forward in the second half, and obviously the second half of extra time as well. I think when you're playing in conditions like that, it takes more out of you than it would in a regular club game. And look, I don't know how the conditions were in the athletic grounds, but they did look a lot better anyway than how it fared in the Munster final. In fairness, Keane was saying here the Castlehaven v Bridget's semi-final will be an interesting one. Bridget should get over the line, but it's a great incentive for either side to reach an All-Ireland final. Yeah, what would you be thinking with that one? I mean, Castlehaven have been the sort of side that, like, everyone's really gone against. As you said, like, no one, I think people would have looked at Nemo Rangers and Finbars to come through Cork. They would have been the two favourites. I think in Munster, I remember saying to you, I fancied Rathcormac to beat them a couple of weeks ago. That obviously didn't happen. They obviously had a close game with Cratloe a couple of weeks ago as well, and now they have a close game here. Like, they seem to be just about getting over the line, but at the same time, like, as some people say, like, that's the sign of champions. And this is a team that doesn't know how to lose, and that could be something that could really stand to them going into that semi-final.
And that's the thing with Castlehaven. They're trying to get form and everything like that together. And to be fair to Castlehaven over the last few years, the only side which they've lost to over the last couple of years has been St. Finbars. That has been their Achilles heel since, I'd say, 2021, really. Okay, there was the COVID final against Nemo Rangers. We count that as 2020. But since 2021, the only side they've lost to in championship has been St. Finbars. And the fact they got over them this year in the semi-final, I think it galvanised them in many ways, and galvanised them against Nemo Rangers that they could get over the line in Munster. And it's almost like it's almost like any club, once they get out of a county championship, that's kind of the hard part. Then when you go into a provincial championship, then you'll start to show what a good side you can be. And Castlehaven have done brilliant in that way, and they just don't know how to lose, as you said. This season in particular, they've been absolutely superb. And even when they've been under the cosh in games such as the Nima Rangers game, the St. Finbarr's game, the first game of the Cork Championship actually against Carby Rangers, they drew in Clonakilty, and that's kind of a quiz question actually. They've drawn 3 games against Cracklow, Dingle and Carby Rangers, and Carby Rangers wouldn't have expected to be in that group. But even in that game, Carby Rangers probably had Castlehaven's number on the day, but Castlehaven, even when performing badly, they still got a result out of that game, and that again shows the sign of champions. It shows the sign of a good team. But what I will say about Bridget's, I watched them against Carfin last week. I was really impressed with them. I thought they were very, very good defensively and offensively. Brian Stack was superb in the back line. Ben O'Carroll was really, really good. I think he won 7, 8 shots, 8 out of 10 taken, 80%, which is absolutely brilliant. And he is a top quality forward that Castlehaven have to watch. But I will say about that is Castlehaven have the defenders to mark the likes of Ben O'Hara, because when you look at Paul Ganey yesterday for Dingle, he was getting annoyed as the game went on with Damien Catalan on him, because Damien Catalan is the kind of guy that would not let a player go. Rory Maguire's nearly the same. So, and Conor Catalan could help around the back line as well. Mark Collins, he's just a fighter as well. And yeah, have those around the back line and around midfield would definitely help. But I think the interesting matchup once it comes to the semi-final stage will be Brian Stack up against Brian Hurley. That'll be a big matchup in my opinion. You have Brian Stack, who's been superb in the club championship, has probably been one of the best fullbacks, centre-backs in the country in many ways over the last few years. And Brian Hurley, you know, an influential forward for Cork, influential forward for Castlehaven. So that'll be a big matchup too. A lot will depend actually on injuries, because Conor Callahan went off injured in the first half. Michael Hurley did as well. Will they be coming back into the semi-final? But I think what Castlehaven will cherish now from now until the end of the year is winning this Munster Championship, because this is big for them. It's their first championship since 1997. And I think Bridges might have thought the same as well. First Connacht championship since 2012, 2013. I think it is. So them two sides, and what I will say, these two sides are on an even pedestal to the fact that they're in uncharted territory. One of them has a lifetime opportunity of reaching an All-Ireland final, while the Sharks are the other tank in many ways. Glen and Kilmacud fight on the other side and beat lumps out of each other. These two sides are fighting for an All-Ireland final spot, and it's a big opportunity for either one of them. Look, it's a tight one to call. It really is a tight one to call at this stage, but the fact I said Dingle would win Munster, I said the Bars or Nemo would win Cork. It's a sign that you cannot bet against Castlehaven. So I'm just going to go for once, I'm just going to go for Castlehaven to go on and win this game against Bridges, but it will be an extremely tight game to call.
Yeah, it definitely will. And I suppose as Keane was saying there, and you were saying as well, like it is such a huge opportunity for either clubs. And I know Bridget's obviously, you know, you think back to 2013 when they went the entire way. But yeah, like it's a huge opportunity for both clubs. Like Bridget's have a lot of young players in there. As you've said before, for Castlehaven, like this has been a bit of a fairy tale story in many ways. Something else I wanted to go through was obviously something you put up on Instagram earlier today over on Gaelic Statsman. Nice little plug for your Instagram channel there. But yeah, it was about Cork football in 2023 and how the progression has obviously been, as we can see there. Some multiple different stats about Cork football this year. So look, it's been a very good year for Cork. Like when you go through some of those things there, I mean, a lot of Kerry clubs have been beaten by Cork clubs a lot of the time this season as well so far. So I mean, could this be a sign for Cork football going into 2024?
I think it's a sign of progression, as I mentioned in the post there. I think it is a sign of progression for Cork football that the fact there that UCC won the Sigerton Cup, and I was kind of worrying that they'd be mostly Kerry, but then I looked over the report on the Irish Examiner, did my research. 11 out of the 15 were actually Cork players, including the likes of Shane Merritt, Mark Cronin, Fionn Hurley, all of them. So it was good for them to win it. Daniel O'Mahony in that team as well. So it's brilliant for them to go on and win it. The senior team has been brilliant this year. Like they've only lost by a maximum of 4 points, which is brilliant. To see beating Mayo and Roscommon was absolutely huge this season. And obviously with the two clubs in Castlehaven and Kilnamatra, I think you talk about Castlehaven being a fairy tale beating Dingle, but Kilnamartyr beating Milltown Castlemaine was huge. The 9th best club in Kerry coming up against the 25th best club in Cork, and the 25th best club in Cork was winning that game. And I think it's just a sign that Cork football could be on a steady rise again. As Castlehaven actually said on their Twitter earlier today, this is a good sign for Cork football. It is a good step. And I will say there is signs of progression there. There are signs as well that Cork are a hard team to beat. When you look at the senior championship this season, like I mentioned there as well, Dublin, Kerry, Derry, Mayo, Roscommon, Kildare have all come up against Cork, and still the maximum losing margin was 4 points. And that is brilliant to see, in fairness. They lost only by 2 against Kerry, 2 against Dublin. So, yeah, it's a brilliant year, I think, for Cork football in general. It's a progressive year. It's not as good as the likes of Dublin, Limerick, Kerry. I'm not getting that far ahead of myself, but it's a progressive year. It really is, and it's really good for Cork football in the next few years. But what I will say, the league is another step. Division 2. It's going to be a big Division 2 campaign. We might discuss the league fixtures in a bit, but we've Donegal and Ballybofey first, without the Castlehaven boys, without Rory Maguire and Brian Hurley. So that's going to be a huge challenge facing up against Jim McGuinness, and we might mention that later. I hear that Jim McGuinness has actually got intense training camps already lined up. So no, it's not going to be easy going up to Ballybofey on a wet January afternoon. But there is good signs for Cork football, and I'm really delighted that they're making these signs of progress. And there is a sign that Cork football is back, but at the same time, the next step now is to get up to Division 1, to get up to play the Dublins, the Kerrys, the Galways, the Mayos on a regular basis. If we could do that, I think that's a brilliant sign. And it's amazing actually, Aaron, because over the last few years when I've on your channel, it's kind of like I was hanging out the hope that Cork would test Kerry because of just sheer resolve. But when you look at those stats now, there is signs of progress there that Cork football could be on the way back up the pedestal, and it's great to see. It's great to see, really, for many other counties as well, because the other counties, including Kerry more so than others, need a strong Cork in Munster in particular to test them to the bitter end as well. So I think it's just great that Cork football is back up to the pedestal, and hopefully for Kildare and Meath's sake as well, and Leinster, hopefully they'll get out the pedestal in the next few years too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the only thing about Cork especially is how many times, like, it wouldn't surprise me if you beat Donegal in the opening day in the league and then you go out and lose to Louth or Cavan, and it's back to square one. Like, it'll be, even that Fermanagh game sort of towards the end of February, like, I don't know, who knows, maybe Fermanagh could pull off the surprise there. Like, that's just the worry about Cork, is that they seem to always do well when they play better teams, but when they play teams that you think they should be beating comfortably, it seems to always be the way. But look, I'm sure we'll probably preview the Cork footballers at some point between now and when the league comes around. Watty Graham's Glen, great result obviously for them as well, 13 points to 11. Scottstown led by 2 points at half time. I'm actually yet to watch the first half, actually, because of the fact that the Dingle Castlehaven game went to penalties, so I missed the first half. But it was a brilliant turnaround from Watty Graham's Glen in the second half. All their big players stood up. Conor Glass, I thought, was brilliant, sort of in the closing stages, kicked a really important point. Ewan Mulholland from wing back, outstanding, 3 points, 1 man of the match. But yeah, Glen, I suppose, answered what was, a few minute critics, and maybe put myself in that bracket as well. I wasn't entirely convinced by them going into this game. I think they haven't looked as good as what they've looked last year. But look, they keep doing enough, and I think our good friend from the GA Sports Tracker app, Kevin, was putting out some great stats in terms of the amount of chances they're creating game on game. Like, their conversion rate maybe isn't as high as the likes of a Kilmacud Crokes, but what they are doing is creating a whole host of chances compared to other clubs. And I think that's definitely what's standing to them. And yeah, look, they pulled away in the end, and maybe the difference between them and Dingle was, I suppose, as we were saying there, like, they pushed on and got over the line going down the home stretch.
Yeah, it's, as we mentioned with Castlehaven, there is what great teams actually do in getting over the line, and Watty Graham's Glen did that yesterday, in fairness. And it's almost like in every game, Glen kind of find new heroes to step up to the plate. Like, in usual games, it's Conor Glass, it's Ethan Doherty, who probably haven't hit top stride in the club championship as of yet. Like, I've seen them in the semi-final in full against Naomh Quinlan, and Ethan Doherty was nearly anonymous in that game. Conor Glass wasn't great, but it looks of it anyway. I actually didn't get the chance to watch it either because of assignments for college and obviously the Castlehaven and Dingle game as well. So I'm kind of at the same boat as yourself there. But it looks of it, they didn't step out to the pedestal either. But the likes of Danny Tallon and the likes of Ewan Mulholland in particular stepped up. Ewan Mulholland was brilliant yesterday, scoring 3 points from wing back, and as Glen do, they find new heroes to step up in days to count. Like Stevie O'Hara's done it multiple times off the bench. Like obviously Emmett Bradley did it against Naomh Quinlan in the last round. So yeah, Glen definitely find ways to win, and they might not be performing to the top level of their ability, but they are putting away these very good teams in general. Like Cargan aren't a bad team from Antrim. Naomh Quinlan, by the looks of them in that game in RT, didn't look bad either. And Scottstown have a plethora of inter-county players. So to beat them 3 sides without going to extra time or penalties or whatever, I think it's just a sign that Watty Graham's Glen are here to go on and win the All-Irelands. And a lot of comments are saying that, like Pádraig Farrelly actually mentioned earlier that Kilmacud might have the upper hand on Glen because of, that stuff that happened last year. But I think Glen might think this is a chance to right the wrongs here. And they know, like Malachy O'Rourke, I listened to his interview on Off the Ball yesterday, speaking to Jonathan Higgins, and he said that they put their hands up. They didn't perform to their utmost against Kilmacud last year. Kilmacud were the better team, and me and you both said it on this podcast last year that Kilmacud deserved to win it. 17 players, 16 players, or 15 players, whatever it was. Kilmacud deserved to win the game, and it should have been, drawn under a line at that. And Watty Graham's Glen, in fairness to them, they noticed that, they admitted it, and they went on. They moved on, and their focus now is towards this Kilmacud game. And I think, but it looks like I said Watty Graham's Glen from the start because the vengeance will be at the back of their minds, thinking we could go on and beat Kilmacud Crokes. That, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong now, Aaron, I think the All-Ireland semi-finals this year are going to be outside Croke Park because the hurling next week are going to be outside Croke Park.
That way, yeah.
So what I will say, if it's on in Cavan or it's on in Páirc Tailteann, I think Kilmacud will be put to the test or collar. I really think so, because when you look at Kilmacud and Leinster semi-final in particular against RD St Mary's, RD probably aren't up to Kilmacud standards, but they put it up to them because it was a tight pitch. They had a plan, and they, parked the bus in many ways in the first half, tried to keep the score down, and then eventually threw the shackles off, and they nearly, with a bit of luck, they could have gone and won that game as well. Even in Croke Park, Kilmacud didn't look to their brilliant, blistering best against Naas, in my opinion. Yes, Shane Walsh was superb. Unreal performance. Paul Mannion, to an extent, produced some moments of brilliance throughout the Dublin Championship too. But Kilmacud would have to perform, I'd say, nearly 3 times more than what they did against Naas to even get close to Watty Graham's Glen. I think so anyway. Look, Kilmacud are a good side. They have some good players. Shane Walsh is an outstanding player, outstanding individual player, and sometimes can win games on his own. But the thing is, Watty Graham's Glen are the kind of team, the kind of dairy champions that they are, to have a plan, to go into a game and have someone lined up for Shane Walsh. And that's what Kilmacud need to be prepared for this game. So it's going to be an intriguing game. It really is. We can't wait for it when it comes around in the first weekend of January, I think it is. So if it is outside Croke Park, which I think it is anyway, I think Glen have a huge chance of upsetting the odds.
Yeah, no, look, I think if it's outside Croke Park, it suits Glen down to the ground, because they're so used to playing in those tight pitches. Don't get me wrong, Kilmacud Crokes are as well, but I think there's a big difference from the majority of games where Watty Graham's Glen have played as opposed to Kilmacud Crokes, who've played the vast majority of their games in Parnell Park and in Croke Park this year. So look, it definitely is a benefit to them, and there's absolutely no question about it. I probably would agree with what Pádraig said earlier, though, in many ways as well. I think Kilmacud Crokes will be absolutely biting at the teeth here because of everything that happened last year, because of the whole replay saga, Glen looking for a replay. I think Crokes will have a real vendetta to go out and show Watty Graham's Glen and show the rest of the country that they are the best club. And I think they'll want to produce a top performance, because as you said last year, I don't think they were actually at their best in that game. But is it fair to say, though, that the winner is coming from that game? Do you think in the semi-finals, is it that easy, or do we see either Castlehaven or Bridget's, maybe one of them could do it? What do you think?
It's hard really to imagine Castlehaven or Bridges doing it as much as I want it to happen. The Castlehaven are a good group and good players, and Bridges, I wouldn't degrade them whatsoever going on all out of run as well. But you have to imagine it'll be between these two. These are the two heavyweights, and this is a huge game between Kilmacud and Glen in general. And yes, I think Glen would be more hungry for this because Kilmacud won the All Ireland last year. But then again, like it's a hard one because Kilmacud might want to prove that it was no fluke, it was no cheat last year. That they want to win it fairly. I mean, well, to be honest, I think they won it fairly last year. To me, they don't need to prove anything, but they might think at the back of their minds that we need to prove something to the public to make them believe that we're the best team in Ireland. So, yeah, I think Kilmacud would have vengeance going into this in a way. I think Glen have more vengeance though, and to win an All Ireland. Like they've been gearing up for an All Ireland since that very day. Since when they left Croke Park, I think Malachy Rourke would have said to these players in the dressing room that remember this day, we'll get back here again. We have to go through Derry and go through Ulster. And it was a tough road for them. Let's not forget. They had to come through Slaughtneil and Derry. Slaughtneil with these players like Brendan Rodgers, Shane McGuig and Chrissy McCaig, like brilliant players like that. And then to go through Ulster, including a brilliant team like Scott. So with the likes of the Hugheses, the likes of McCarran, the likes of Conor McCarthy, the likes of Rory Began, they went through them yesterday after a tough slog. So who's to say they can't go on and win the All Ireland? So I think they can. I think they've been a forefront mind to go on and win the All Ireland. It's going to be an intriguing game, but to answer your question, I think it's going to be that side of the draw to go on and win the All Ireland. Like fair play to Bridges, fair play to Castlehaven for getting to the stage, and whoever wins that game, it'll be a monumental achievement to get to an All Ireland final. But I just feel that whoever comes out the other side, the Shark Tank, as I call it, with Glen and Kilmacud, will eventually lift the cup in January.
Yeah, I'd agree as well. Like, I think with the history of Crokes and Glen, like, I think they are the two best club teams in the country. I think most people have predicted that from the start of the year. Obviously, in football, it doesn't always work out that way, but this is what's happened. And look, I think it's going to be a hugely intriguing game. And I think, like hopefully they do put it in a stadium as well, though, that can fit the demand of the amount of, because I think this is a game that will sell out quite a bit, in terms of supporters, because I think neutrals will probably want to come to this game as well, especially if it is in a Park Talchin or in a Portlaoise or something like that. I think a lot of the neutrals of those counties will want to go and see the game as well. So it's going to be very, very interesting indeed. So if you were to call it now, then you think who do you think's going to win it, and who do you think's going to get beat in the final?
It's a tough one, but I did say from the very start, and I said it in your predictions video in the club season with Kevin on that as well. Check it out if you haven't already. I said that Watergraves Graham's game will win it, the All Ireland in full. So for that reason, I'm going to stick to my guns. I'm going to go for Watergraves Graham's game to win it. I just feel there'll be more vengeance for them to get over the line than there is for Kilmacud Croke. So I'm just going to go for Watergraves Graham's game to win it. I think they'll beat, I'd say tentatively, Castlehaven will be decided to lose in the All Ireland final.
Oh, I think we're still here, are we? I thought I was gone again.
Are they cut off?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what happened there. Maybe it was you this time. But yeah, Glen versus Castlehaven in the final is what you were going for. I'd probably go to reversal of that. Crokes to be Bridget's in the final. I know Castlehaven have had an extraordinary year, and look, I've bet against them for the whole year pretty much. Although I did actually predict them to win the Cork Championship, I'm pretty sure, earlier in the year. So at least I got that one right, to be fair. But yeah, look, I think Crokes ultimately for me are just going to be too strong. I think they're going to have the bit between their teeth against Whitegraham's Glen, and it almost wouldn't surprise me if they went out there and put on an absolute show and beat Glen by 4 or 5 points. I wouldn't be shocked by that. Now, I don't see that happening. I will stress that I think Glen are too good of a team, too good of a side defensively to let that happen. But I do think Crokes will really have the fire under their belly going into going into that game. We'll run through some stories and some different topics from the GAA, obviously in the past week or so. The National Football League fixtures were released. I was hoping to go through the GAA website and actually have a run through the fixtures, but unfortunately, the GAA hasn't updated their website, so we actually don't have the fixtures. We still have the 23 ones over there. So, you would think they would put the fixtures of the competitions on there. So, yeah, those images definitely look a lot smaller on the screen. So I do apologize for that. But going through some sort of key fixtures, I'll just run through maybe some of Dublin's games that sort of stood out for me. So obviously Dublin playing Monaghan, the opening game at home, obviously in Croke Park. I think Monaghan will have the bit between their teeth in that game, to be honest with you. A bit like what we talked about with Crokes there, considering what Monaghan actually have a very good record against Dublin in the league recently. Mayo versus Dublin is the second game away to Mayo. Dublin playing Roscommon and Kerry at home back-to-back. Derry away, Galway away, Tyrone at home. Interesting enough, Dublin are playing Galway away on Paddy's weekend. So, I think that could be a good weekend down in Galway. But yeah, like from looking through some of the fixtures, like I was looking at Corks as well. Obviously, as we were saying there, like he played Donegal in the opening weekend, and you've got a couple of winnable fixtures against the likes of Louth and Fermanagh. But yeah, what were your thoughts on some of the fixture list fixtures? Was there any that sort of stood out for you?
Actually, I'd even go down further to Division 4, and I don't know, did anybody find this strange? I found it strange in particular that some sides had 3 away games in a row, and some sides had 3 home games in a row. I don't think that's ever seen in the Alliance League. Not sure what the situation was there. I think it was a fixture. I thought I made wrong information. I genuinely thought it was wrong information. But then I looked at it, I double checked it. Yeah, Leitrim have 3 away games against Carlow, Longford, and Laois. That's one of them. Longford have 3 home games in a row. Just check it here. London, Leitrim, and Carlow. Tipperary have 3 home games in a row in Laois, Waterford, and Wexford. While Waterford have 3 away games in a row in Wexford, Tip, and London. Like, that's not fair. I don't think that's fair at all. I hope that's a mistake from the Alliance League or the GA county or the boards there, because that's unfair. It really is unfair. I think it's unjust in many ways. But even look at the Division 1, I think the game that everybody will be looking to in Division 1 is February 24th, Croke Park, Dublin, Kerry. Honestly, because like a lot of people will be looking at that thinking, will Kerry take it seriously? Will Dublin take it seriously? But I just think it'd be that sort of a game in the league where Dublin will play, I don't know, give Theo Clancy a run from Kilmacud Crokes, or give somebody else a run. Kerry will give Dylan Ganey a few games. It'll be that sort of a game. I think that second teams or testing teams will probably be playing in that game. And I genuinely think Dublin and Kerry will probably finish mid-table in Division 1. I don't think they'll take the league seriously, and I don't think they'll go down. They're way too good to go down. I just think they're going to come in the All-Ireland at the right time. You looked at Mayo last year, like a lot of people hyped over Mayo, including myself and yourself. Remember that? We hyped over Mayo because of their performance in the league, and they were absolutely exceptional in it. But then as soon as they get to the championship, they weren't their usual selves after that. So I think teams will be thinking that we don't need to go full pelt in the league, especially in Division 1. But then it's actually when you move down to Division 2, Division 3, Division 2, Division 3 in particular, because there's a lot of permutations there on Tailteann Cup and stuff like that. And I think there's less of that this year because like you'd have one Division 3 or Division 4 team definitely in the All-Ireland Championship. That's Clare, Tipper, or Waterford because of the Munster Championship draw. That's just the way it is. But the Tailteann Cup winners are based in Division 2. So I think that's a kind of a safety net for everybody else. And that'll be a good thing for maybe that'll give more onus on the Division 3 final, for example. Whoever wins that is in the front seat for the Tailteann Cup. So there's a lot of, ifs, buts, and maybes and things like that. But I genuinely think it's going to be the same as the last few years. Division 2 and Division 3 are going to be the ones to watch. And the most, I would say the most important in terms of the championship performances after that.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I was looking at that as well on Division 4. I was looking at the fixtures there. Longford having 3, home games as well. It is a little bit unusual. I thought maybe at first it was because of London being maybe at some, but then I was looking at Leitrim's, and as you said, there's 3 away games there: Carlow, Longford, and Laois, I think it is. And there's no London involved there, so yeah, a little bit bizarre, that's the case. And yeah, you feel. Yeah, very, very, very odd, to be honest. You'd have to imagine probably it's a mistake. You would have to feel some sort of error there, but we'll obviously see. We'll see what happens maybe when it gets closer to it. I was looking there as well. Derry versus Tyrone is happening on February 4th. We obviously know the scenario with Mickey Hart going to Derry, so that's a really interesting one. Galway versus Mayo is the first game, which I think was the first game last year as well. I think Mayo were at home though, so this time around Galway would be at home. So there is some interesting games, like Dublin going away to Mayo as well on February 3rd. I think Dublin's fixture list, like from a Dublin perspective, as you said, I would agree with you. I think Dublin won't be relegated, but I don't think it will be anywhere near a league final. I think it will be much of what we've seen from last year with Dublin, where there's probably going to be multiple occasions where we don't look great and we play quite poor, but we do enough to get over the line. Like the opening game against Monaghan, like we might get a draw there, we might sneak it. I don't think we'll play particularly brilliant, but we might just, and going at home to Roscommon, for example, home to Tyrone on the final day, like a way to go. I can see us doing enough to take ourselves out of a relegation battle, but at the same time, I don't think it'll be enough to get into a league final. But yeah, like the Derry versus Tyrone one, like on the second game, that's going to be a mouth-watering match.
It is definitely, and when you look at the significance of it as well, not just Mickey Hart coming in, but the playing significance of it and the significance of Division 1. It's brilliant that Mickey Hart is welcoming his old team in Tyrone going to Celtic Park. It'll be very interesting to see what sort of a team he comes up and plays Tyrone with Derry. But what I will say, Tyrone's first game is at home to Roscommon. And actually, before the league fixtures were announced, and not to spoil any predictions and stuff like that, but I would have predicted Tyrone and Roscommon to get relegated, both of them. So I think that game is going to be crucial, whoever wins that. And Tyrone have home advantage in that in Oma. So, that's not really good in Roscommon. And I'm looking at Roscommon's fixtures here. Tyrone away, Galway at home, Dublin away, Monaghan at home, and then you have Mayo away, Kerry at home, Derry away. So that's not easy. It really is not easy. When you look at the sides coming to Hyde Park, Galway, only a mile down the road. Monaghan, okay, that could be winnable, but then you have Kerry at home as well. And Kerry, like you'll have to imagine Kerry will pluck up their away far more than they did last year. So I think Roscommon could be a major trouble when you look at it. But Tyrone and Derry, huge game for them. And actually, Derry's fixture isn't pretty when you look at it either. Kerry away is a tough one to start off. Going down to Killarney, that's going to be a tough one. It really is going to be a tough one for Mickey Hart. Actually, the significance of that, Mickey Hart's first competitive game as Derry manager is away to Kerry. It's a bit ironic, isn't it? The side that he's got the better of so many times over the last few years, especially with Tyrone. Then he got a tanking off Kerry with Loud. He'd be, determined to go down to Killarney and get a win to stamp his authority on this Derry team. So, yeah, I'd be interested to see how Derry get on this Tyrone too after what happened in the quarterfinal last year against Kerry in particular. But, I think that first game would be more important to Tyrone against Roscommon than the Derry game, which is second.
Absolutely, yeah. No, there's some interesting games, all right, and obviously I'm sure when it gets closer to the time, there'll be predictions and different things, obviously, that will come out for the different divisions. So it will most certainly be very interesting to see. Something else I wanted to discuss as well was the article that Joe Brolly wrote in the Irish Independent during the week about Jim McGuinness. So as you'll see there, it was a tweet from Joe Brolly. In 2010, Jimmy told his squad their mission was to break Tyrone and Mickey Hart. They did exactly that, breaking them and dominating Ulster. Now his mission is to break Derry. If I were Mickey, I'd be putting in a call to Loud. And when you go through the article, to quote what Joe Brolly said, he said, "Trust me when I say that Jimmy's primary goal now is to break Derry. It will be an obsessive, relentless pursuit for him, obliterating everything else in his and his players' lives. drink, socializing, women, men, confectionery, mobile phones, all of it is gone. And then he also says all that is left in their world is heart and dairy. Nothing exists except the first round of the Ulster Championship in Celtic Park. The dark destroyer of Gaelic football is back. A new strain of the McGuinness virus is about to be unleashed. If I were Hart, I would be putting in a call to Loud. So we expected a lot of animosity, all right, between Derry and Tyrone. But according to Joe Brolly, there's going to be a huge amount of animosity between Derry and Donegal. And I suppose Joe Brolly's very, very outspoken here about Jim McGuinness. What was your take on that?
It's actually funny because in the middle of college and things like that, like when I get bored, I usually watch YouTube. But I started actually watching RT player documentaries, and the documentary I came across with Gaelic Games was Jimmy's winning matches in 2012 with Donegal. And I actually watched that, and even at the start, Joe Brolly coincidentally was in that documentary, and he said he watched Donegal's first training session in 2011 under Jim McGuinness, and he said it was almost like an army camp. Players were nearly vomiting everywhere. It was kind of like the players kind of didn't expect this type of intensity. And these sorts of players are kind of thinking the same thing now. The likes of Oisin Gallen, the likes of Kieran Thompson, Niall O'Donnell, Michael Langan, they're exceptional players, exceptional quality. But they're going to be in a large, hard winter in many ways in December, January before the Cork game. It's going to be a huge year, I think, for Donegal in general, because you look at even the year after, the year before Jim McGuinness took over in 2010 with Donegal, they got hammered by Armagh out pillar to post in Crossmaglen. And what Jim McGuinness did was erase that from their memories, and he said, we're going to be Ulster champions to every one of the players. He's that kind of a motivator. And Joe Brolly seems to like him as well. And the fact he said, like Joe Brolly said, that if I was Mickey Hart, I'd go to Loud, I think that's a bit far in general, because Mickey Hart, in his first year, let's not forget, he'll get them Derry players roiled up as well. Let's not forget, okay, Mickey Hart did well with Tyrone, and he wanted to get a further test and things like that. He went down to Loud, Division 4, nearly got them to Division 1. He got them to a Leinster final. He's that kind of a manager as well. He's a kind of manager that, grains it into their player, grains, success into the players for the work goal, no matter what the quality. Same as Jim McGuinness. So I think it's just going to be an intriguing battle in the quarterfinal of the All-Ireland Championship. But I think actually Mickey Hart might be on the right or end of the stick to Jim McGuinness. Okay, Jim McGuinness is in Division 2. It's a tough division, but Mickey Hart, week in, week out before that, is going to play against Dublin, Kerry, Galway, Mayo, Roscommon, Monaghan, all in the space of a few weeks. Tyrone as well, let's not forget. So I think Mickey Hart is in a good state coming into the Derry job. He has the players that he's supposed to know. All he needs to do is grind it into them that we're going to win another Ulster Championship, and we're potentially going to go for an All-Ireland crown. Whereas with Donegal, it's hard to, like, okay, Jim McGuinness has worked miracles. Even in that Jimmy's winning matches documentary, check it out if you haven't already. It's a brilliant documentary on how he rose that Donegal team from the ashes, really, losing that game across Glen, to eventually 2 years later win the All-Ireland, playing one of the most revolutionary styles of football that we've ever seen in the game. But this is another test at its own level, because you looked at Donegal last year. Yes, there was bright sparks. They beat Monaghan. They had a good performance against Derry themselves, but and they beat Clare as well. But they lost it down. They got hammered by Tyrone. They were terrible in the league last year. So I think Jim McGuinness has a lot more work to do than Mickey Hart does. So to say that Mickey Hart will be crying back to Loud, I think that's a bit far for Joe Brolly. But then again, it is Joe Brolly. He's a bit over the top sometimes. Well, not sometimes, but you get my your drift there. But I just think Mickey Hart is in a good state coming into the Derry job. And Jim McGuinness, he is a redeemer after all, but he still has a lot of work to do with this group of Donegal players. There are quality there, but the performances last season, Jimmy will have to fix them before even thinking about Mickey Hart and Derry and potentially an All-Ireland title.
Yeah, no, I think we've seen Joe go over the top with multiple articles down the years, even some of the stuff he said about Mayo down the years. I know we've been quite critical of Mayo ourselves in the past while, but I think he's nearly took it a bridge too far. And even with this as well, it's probably a little bit a little bit wild. But like why it caught my attention as well is I just found it so hypocritical in many ways, because like he was the same man who was lauding Rory Gallagher and jumping around and dancing in the stands when Rory Gallagher won Derry and Ulster Championship. And like Rory Gallagher's football is Jim McGuinness 2.0. Like when Rory Gallagher was in charge of Derry, like, and to be calling Jim McGuinness the dark destroyer of football, like, like looking, his football probably wasn't the most prettiest when he was in charge. It definitely wasn't. I remember being there, Croke Park, Dublin Donegal, the 2011 All-Ireland semi-final, and I don't think anybody knew what was going on in the game at half-time. It was like, goodness me, what have we watched? I've never seen anything like it, and still have never seen anything like it. But I do think it's quite hypocritical from Joe Brolly at the same time to be calling Jim McGuinness the dark destroyer of football, whilst at the same time, obviously, we all know the scenario with Rory Gallagher, but in terms of the footballing element of it, he was lauding Rory Gallagher when he was in charge of Derry, because of, obviously, he won Ulster Championships when he was in charge of Derry. So, yeah, it's I suppose a little bit hypocritical maybe in some ways.
Maybe, yeah. But then again, he did call Jim McGuinness. Yeah, Rory Gallagher. He's a brilliant manager, but the thing is, he was a brilliant coach too. And Jim McGuinness had him in 2012. Let's not forget, and he was probably the big man in changing Donegal's fortunes as well as McGuinness. And he wasn't mentioned much in the documentary, no, but he was a guy that implemented a load of systems in the Donegal players' heads. He's not there anymore now. So that's another test for Jim McGuinness in many ways. And like Mickey Hart, I don't get, like, didn't he say Mickey Hart was revolutionary in the 2000s, team of the decade as well? So
yeah, I'm pretty sure he did. Yeah.
So that's another thing as well. But it seems like as if Joe Brolly kind of joins the crowd whenever there's hype going up. And there was hype going up about Jim McGuinness's appointment. There's hype up about, so far, his training sessions, apparently, with the Donegal team, and his speeches. And the players are not going for interviews and things like that. And it's almost like a drill camp, like it was in 2011. And it's almost like Joe Brolly forgets what Mickey Hart has done with Tyrone and Louth. So, like I just think he kind of jumps on the bandwagon a bit too much. Like, even the Mayo stuff, like, a lot of people are saying it online as jokes and stuff like that, like Gaelic crack and things like that. And Joe Brolly jumps on the bandwagon and, berates Mayo. And he does it with every county, really. Like, in every county. Like, if you haven't been on the rear end of Joe Brolly's criticisms as a county, then, where are you, simply because he's gone after Kerry, he's gone after Cork, he's gone after Dublin in many times, I'd imagine. He's gone after Mayo, he's gone after Galway, he's gone after Donegal at times, Tyrone, his own county, Derry, right now, today, Antrim, Down. Like, he's gone after nearly every county as far as I watch football. That was since 2008. So that's a load of counties. Kildare, Meath, it's a load. Monaghan. Look, that's off the top of my head. No, there's bound to be more. So Joe Brolly is the kind of guy that kind of irks county fans in many ways, and he's trying to get a reaction off them. Even that comment about Mayo a few years ago about him being the biggest time wasters in Gaelic football, that was a bit far. Well, not a bit far. Well, way too far. To my liking. But like, that's what Joe Brolly is. He's entertainment. People like him because of entertainment, but I just feel nowadays that he's off RTE. He kind of jumps on the bandwagon a bit too much, and that's just my honest thing on Joe Brolly. I'd love to have him back on RTE. RTE's getting a bit stale now, and Joe Brolly would be brilliant back on there, to add a bit of entertainment in many ways. But I just feel he's getting on the bandwagon a bit too much, and he's probably looking at the Jimmy's Winning Matches documentary and probably thinking the same thing's going to happen as 2011.
Yeah, like, no, I would agree. Like, I'd love to see him back on some sort of television. Like, I think he is very entertaining. You don't know what he's going to say next. And even when I've listened to him on podcasts and stuff, I listened to him on the Tomas O'Shea podcast in the build-up to the All-Ireland final. And it was a little bit wild, to be honest with you, because he just kept going down so many rabbit holes. You just didn't know what he was going to say next. And I remember it was a couple of times where it was nearly like Tomas was nearly, I think he just wanted to tell him to shut up. He was like, can you just, pipe it down a little, because he just kept going on and on and on. Yeah, it was very funny. But But yeah, like, what did you make of the story around Jim McGuinness as well? Like, about the whole thing of he's looking to build a wall around his team's training camps to keep the media out. And as you've said before, there's been a few leaks of a few other things going on in regards to training. And I think someone else was saying that apparently they've booked out camps up in the mountains somewhere in up the north somewhere. So yeah, like, it's intense preparation. And look, I mean, Jim McGuinness is I tell you what, he's really going all out for this.
He is. He definitely is. And the first step for Donegal is to get out of Division 2. And he'll be targeting that game against Cork in Ballybuffet. And it just epitomises how much Jim McGuinness wants this. That he's putting the game in Division 2 on a Sunday for the lowest county geographically in the country, all the way up to the very north of Donegal. That just epitomises how much he wants this, how much he wants to get off the ground running. But the thing is, and I'm not saying Cork will beat Donegal now, but if it all goes pear-shaped in that match, what will the reaction be? That's what will test the mantle of these Donegal players. And to be honest, the media stuff, the building of the wall, the no media conversations, whatever, it doesn't surprise me. It literally does, because of what went on in 2011. And even in 2011, when the media was there, and I remember that game in particular, Donegal and Antrim in the Ulster Championship, and Pat Spillane was saying that Ryan Bradley, I think, on the man of the match. And to be honest, he said Ryan Bradley won a kind of a petty award because nobody was up for man of the match. And that fight with RT that Jim McGuinness had, he's very defensive of his players, and he's very defensive against the media if it involves his own team. So I'm not surprised that he's building a wall. I'm not surprised that there's a media ban, whatever, because like there was a lot of criticism for Donegal in 2011. But then again, didn't that criticism bind them together even more? And didn't that drive them on to All-Ireland success in 2012? So there's some elements to that to think maybe the media kind of helped them in a way. But you never know. But to put a long story short, I'm not surprised that it's kind of like that camp. As Joe Bradley said in 2011, it was almost like a training camp back then. And I'd imagine it's almost like that now. And the first game of the league will tell an awful lot. And I will say this, the fact they're taking Cork all the way up to Ballybuffet shows their intentions.
Yeah, no, I think it's that whole siege mentality thing that a lot of these managers really feed off of, and I think Jim McGuinness is very like that as well. I think he's very good at it being us against the world type thing, and I think he fed off of a lot of the negativity that Donegal got in 2011 when they were playing that brand of football. And I think he loves it. I think he enjoys it, and I think he loves, having people say that about his team, because, as you say, like, stick the quotes up on the wall, and if that's not going to motivate the lads, then what will? But yeah, look, it's gonna be very interesting going into next year. Absolutely, no doubt about it. And as you said there, like, some fixtures next season are going to be very interesting. Donegal Derry, obviously, in the early rounds of the championship, Derry Tyrone in the early rounds of the league. Like, I suppose only 6 weeks away now from the return of intercounty football, and you can just feel the excitement starting to build.
Yeah, exactly. So it's that stage of the season, really, and it's stage of the season that everybody's gearing up to go to the games again in the Alliance League. And yeah, but there is the argument, and Tony Davis, actually, the Teddy Mack Memorial, Tony Davis mentioned this, in Conor Coonan as well, and I think Mark Landers and the hurling, Sarah Farrell as well, mentioned that the season's kind of getting a bit shorter. And I don't agree to club players. I think it's a brilliant way to express the club game, that you have clubs in August, September, October, November. But the fact that intercounty's in a condensed period of time, and like the pre-season competitions, and I don't know what you think about this, Aaron, it really irks me. I know Cork did well in the Barack Cup last season, but it's just going to add to more games. It's going to add more injuries. Even look at, I think we even said off air that January is going to be absolutely mental next January now, because you have the club semi-finals with Kilmacud and all them involved. You have the college competition starting with the Sigurdsson and Fitzgibbon Cups. You have the pre-season competitions. You have the leagues. Like, that's a lot of competitions. And then after the league finals, a week after the league finals, the championship begins. And you see that with Mayo last year with playing Galway in the league final, and then a week later they play Roscommon in the championship. Look, how is that fair? And how is it fair on the likes of Sligo and Wicklow, who played the Division 4 final last year, and then Sligo had to go to London the very next week, and Wicklow had to play, I think, Laois in a game in the Leinster Championship, or was it? I think it was Carlow or something. That's just unfair. It's really unfair, and I just think the GA needs to have breaks for these players. They need to have a break in April, possibly a break in June or whatnot, and go for it in July. You could still have that kind of a season, but I think it would involve breaking up the preseason competitions. I'm just not a fan of them. I don't think anybody's a fan of them. I just think when you look at the stuff that happened in the O'Byrne Cup last year, probably epitomises the problems in the preseason competitions. And I just think to have them again, I think is really, really poor, really. But you can have challenge games in that time. You can have challenge games when you're not on. You can have challenge games behind closed doors. But to have these preseason competitions on, I just don't buy it hard. I really don't. And what it would do if you hadn't got rid of the preseason competitions, you could put the league on a week earlier. And then you'd have the week at the start of April as a week off for players to recuperate, to get ready for the championship properly. But no, it's all condensed, and you're going to see a lot more injuries. You looked at Tommy Conroy over the last few years, playing with NUIG Galway in the Sigerson Cup, gets an ACL injury out for the whole year. And he didn't play with Mayo until next year after that. And that's just sad, because he's a brilliant player. You look at other player, Colin O'Malley, this year playing too many games in the Sigerson Cup, then gets injured, and it doesn't play for the rest of the year for Cork. You know, it's really poor. It really is poor. And I just think the players need a lot more break than what they're getting. And starting with that, they need to ban the preseason competitions. I just think that's my honest opinion. I've said this over and over again. But the GA still are going to keep going with the preseason competitions. And it's annoying, really.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, really. Like, because as you said, like there's no need for them. You know, like don't get me wrong, I can understand teams wanting to play a couple of preseason games, to get up to speed ahead of the league. I think we all understand that, but to force it down counties' throats, like, is just a little bit too far, in my opinion. And yeah, I think we saw it obviously last season with the likes of Louth, and I think Offaly might have pulled out 1 or 2 games. I think Kildare as well. Like it happens so much, and yeah, like there's just like fan interest. Maybe some supporters go to games here and there, but I think that's more so because of the fact that the county football is back. I think it's just that initial buzz. I think you get even more crowds for the start of the league, in my opinion. But why do you think they keep the preseason competitions? Like it's probably just sponsors or something. I think that's the only thing I can think of. Yeah,
it has to be. It really is. And no, I don't know why they keep going with them. Like, you look at the O'Byrne Cup, like I think the McGrath Cup, the Ulster competition, the FBD Cup, I think with Mayo, Derry and Cork winning them, they were probably, sides that along the lines that you'd expect to win them. But when you look at the O'Byrne Cup last year, Dublin were taking it seriously. Kildare weren't. Meath weren't. And what's the reason for that? Because they want to keep their players fresh for the league. And that's just a smart way to go about things. Longford won it last year. And I think the biggest mockery about it was Louth chickened out of a game last year, and then they get a bye into the final against Longford. Why is that? It just epitomises the problems of it. I'm just not a fan of it. And what you could do with that time is you could have games behind closed doors, challenge games. You could have weeks off for players to rest and recuperate, because when you look at it yesterday, like even the club scene with the Castlehaven and Dingle game, like I even seen Brian Hurley take up a penalty. The guy was cramping, and we laughed at him in that celebration. He was cramping as well. Why? Because there's so many games week in, week out. And when you look at it, actually, their semi-finals in January, that's a week nearly after Christmas. The players won't even be able to enjoy Christmas, and that's just a shame as well. It really is a shame. So I'm just not a fan of the preseason competitions. Really, it's not great. Like, we have this conversation yearly every year, and I think we're going to have the same conversation next month, no less, about preseason competitions and why they shouldn't be held. And it has to be sponsors. It has to be something like that, or some inter-county managers are just persistent in keeping them, which is a shame, really.
Yeah, it's a little bit bizarre. All right, Greed says here, I'm interested to see how McGuinness and Donegal deal with a team that just keeps possession. He always talks about intensity and tackling could go badly wrong. It definitely could. But yeah, look, we'll wrap this up here anyway. We've gone on for long enough. Yeah, obviously plenty to go through, and I think we touched very much on all bases there from this weekend's games and a few other news stories and everything else. So yeah, Matthew, cheers for coming on. Make sure to check out the Gaelic Statsman podcast on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify when you get a chance. Make sure to subscribe, leave a like if you haven't already. And yeah, as I was saying earlier, we'll be starting some season previews over the next couple of weeks. So let us know what counties you want me to discuss and what guests to get on as well. So yeah, cheers anyone who tuned in, and we will speak to you all again.